Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. Well, I'm not down in the bunker anymore. I'm out on the back porch, enjoying the sunshine, cooking some chicken and watching a earwig crawl across the grill. I do seem to like being in the grill. But they don't last long because it gets very warm and they're dumb. Anyways, I was talking to Grampie, Mike up at Grampie's workshop, and he's been working on a boat house now since spring. So he's working really hard, and he's working on his own, kind of like I do. I have my son and my wife helping me. Grampie only has himself, but his sons come over on the weekends, and so I guess he does have his sons helping him, so he's not totally by himself. But a lot of the time we work alone. He's an interesting guy. You all should take a look over at his channel. It's Grampie's Workshop. He's up in Canada, and he's a great guy. Anyways, I was talking to him and I said I was out in the backyard. I was waiting for a guy to come talk to me about cutting down a silver maple tree. That big guy over there. Because I was going to put Old Sneelock's Annex right there where that little wooden building is and the tent and the little wooden building along with that barn over there would go, and I would take everything that I stored inside the three of those and I would put it into a pole building. Well, not a pole building, a metal building. Because I wanted to make a metal building that I didn't have to worry about it catching fire. I want to do welding in there, and I want to do blacksmithing, and I want to do all the things that I used to do in my shop that was separated from the house. It wasn't in the basement. It wasn't in the garage attached to the house. It was 60 feet away from the house, so I didn't care. Well, I didn't want the building to burn, but I knew if something went wrong, I wouldn't damage the house. So when I started talking about the annex, originally it was a joke. It's that big tan building over there that they put up for a maintenance shop for the school. And it was entertaining to talk about it, but that kind of started me thinking. And also started Lydia thinking. She wanted to make me happy. Still always does. So she said, why don't you put up a building in the backyard? And we went round and round on how we would do it and what we would do and what kind of building we'd put up and where we'd put it. And we came around and said, we've been talking about moving, so maybe we should move. And that's the problem when you have all the options that you ever wanted. I mean, I can go anywhere and do anything I want. I'm not working. I'm getting paid every day. I'm not working. So it doesn't matter where I am, the money goes in the checking account and we can write checks from it. Between the pensions and the Social Security, between Lydia and I, we do enough that we don't have to worry about it. But we are limited in what we can do. I mean, we're not Harry and Meghan flying around the countryside anytime we want to. We have limitations. Those limitations are only what we allow ourselves. So, back to the story. We said, we've been wanting to move closer to the kids. Why don't we look up there and see if they have a house somewhere with a pole building? We went through the whole looking for houses, and you followed along with me because I talked about it. It's what I do. And turned out that there wasn't any houses that I was willing to sell this house. It's not perfect, but it's darn nice. And we put a lot of time, effort, money in it in the last 11 years, 12 years, that made it so that I could just live here. I'm happy here. But I still wanted to workshop. And when we finally got all done with looking at everything and talking to everybody, the idea of moving up there just to have a pole building didn't make as much sense as it did when we started. So life goes on, and if you're lucky, you go on with it. And we were talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. And we came up with an idea, well, okay, we can't move up near Grand Rapids. At least not right now. Right now, housing prices near Grand Rapids are crazy. My house, sitting on a half-acre of land up near Grand Rapids, would be $350,000. Here in Richland, which is a very nice town, and a lot of people in Kalamazoo want to move here, it's about $250,000. Remember, you got it 11 years ago. We bought it for 70. Now we put 65 into it, so it's okay. But the prices have gone nuts, and we talked about that in item 2. So we said, okay, we're back to putting a building in the backyard. So I had found a place, Menards, sells metal buildings, which we originally talked about pole buildings, but pole buildings have wooden posts. And I like the idea of a pole building because it's stronger and it's a little easier to weatherproof than a metal building. Metal buildings have a tendency to be cold and drafty. There's no joints. They don't seal up the joints between the different layers. But then I watched Matt over at Diesel Creek, and he's putting up a pole building, and I'm thinking, you know, he put up stuff on the inside, and he kind of covered things over, insulated it, and he had a Hansa that heats the floor, and that's not a bad way to go. You know, you can do pretty good with that. So then I was off on another tangent looking at Hansas and all the other things, thinking that I would put the building in the backyard. I was going to put it over there, about where that pile, well, on this side of those 2 trees. And I wanted to have a 24 by 30 foot building. And I said, yeah, we can do that. Well, then Lydia and I talked, and she said, you know, it's going to be too big. It's going to be too close to the house. It's going to cover up part of the house. It's going to be too much. But she said, you have to have 24 by 30 in order to get all your stuff in there. And I said, yeah, I think you're right. It's got to be 24 by 30. What can we do? So we looked at the little buildings over here and said, well, we're going to get rid of those. Actually, the little wooden building over there is going to become Lydia's garden shed. But the tent and the little barn over there, they're going to go away. So if we figure that those are gone, that leaves a hole there. Can I fit a building in between those 2 trees? And I said, yeah, but I really can't be close enough to this big old silver maple, which is dying out at the top, because branches come down out of it. You can see dead ones up in there. I don't know if you can see that in the picture, but there's a lot of dead branches up in the top. So we said, okay, silver maple's got to come down. Now we had a number in our head, and we said the building has got to cost about this much. And I looked and I found the price at Menards, and I had a contractor give me a price for the concrete, 24 by 30. And I said, yeah, I think that'll work. But we got to get that tree down. And it's too big for me to do on my own. Even if I rented a bucket truck, that's more of a job than I want to tackle. Can't work alone on everything. Getting back to the mic part of the story. So I asked a guy to come out and give us an estimate on it. And I said, you got to grind off the stump. You'd have to cut the tree down and grind off the stump, because I'm going to have concrete poured next to it, and I don't want to have those roots pop in the concrete. And we talked about it. Real nice guy, Chris from Kalamazoo Arborist. If you got to talk to somebody about a tree, he's a nice fella. He makes good sense. He doesn't pull punches. He tells you the truth. And I can take almost anything as long as you're telling me the truth. I'm not going to argue with you about facts. So Chris came and he said it's $5,500 to take that tree down. And I'm looking at it, I'm thinking $1,200. But I'm thinking with a head that hasn't cut a tree down or hired anybody to cut a tree down in 8 years. And I had 2 smaller trees. I had a mulberry tree over there, and then I had a sugar maple over on the other end of the yard. And those cost about $900 to take down, the 2 of them. Well, somebody went and spent $31 trillion over the last few years, and the price of everything has shot up through the roof. So the guy cutting trees down's got to charge more. Well, that makes it $5,500 to take that tree down. That just blew me right out of the water as far as saying, yeah, I can do this. It made it too expensive. Chicken's about done. Pork chop's still got to go a little bit. It's only been on there about 10 minutes, so it's got a little more time to go. So $5,500 killed that job. And I thought, oh, there goes the whole project again. I'm getting tired of running up against things I can't get around. So we went in the house and we talked about it, Lydia and I. And I said, well, maybe we'll have to go with a 24 by 24. Get the price down so we can afford to cut the tree down. She said, maybe we don't want to cut that tree down. What if we put it someplace else? I said, yeah, I suppose we could, but it's going to be out in the middle of the yard. It's taking up a lot of yard. She said, what about putting a lean-to on the back of it? Well, the reason that it was going to come out in the middle of the yard is because you can't plant a concrete slab next to a silver maple tree. Silver maple trees, the roots go right across the top of the ground, just about an inch under. And usually the roots are coming up above the ground. And they do that for 15 or 20 feet out away from the tree. So that takes up a whole lot of space that you can't put any concrete in. And the concrete is the foundation of the building that I wanted to put up. But she said, what about putting up a lean-to? Lean-tos don't have foundations. All they have is 4 poles, 6 poles at the most. And you dig a hole in the ground, you stick the pole, you put the cross brace across the top of it, you put up the roofing, and you're all good, because now you have a building that is 24 by 10 lean-to roof and a 24 by 24 building. So I can have the blacksmith shop under the lean-to roof. Kind of good. Hot, smoky, and you need a lot of fresh air, so you got the walls open. You're running it in the summertime or wintertime. Wintertime is hotter than the dickens. Summertime is hotter than the dickens. Having the doors open is nice. So that would make that work. And that lets me put the whole thing back so it's not close to the house at all. And it's not worrying about the tree. And I got it on the end of the property. And one of the things that we were looking at, because you always try and be positive about these things, you know, you come up with an idea and you look at all the positives and you look at all the negatives, and hopefully the negatives are overweighed by the positives. Well, one of the positives about putting the building right straight out there where that little little wooden building is, I need to run power out there, and wire costs money. So at $6 to $8 a foot for triplex to get it out there with number 4 wire big enough to handle 60 amps to run the welder and everything else that needs to be run. If I save 50 feet of wire, that's $300. And that's a good thing. But is it a deal breaker? No, it's not. It's $600. Because one of the things that happens when you go to Myers, or not Myers, when you go to Menards, is they have this thing that they say, oh, that's a sale. If you buy these things, we give you an 11% rebate. Now, if I'm looking at an $8,108 building, which is what I'm looking at, it's called VersaTube. And if you have any negatives about it, please let me know, because we still haven't bought one yet. But I'm looking at it and it seems to be okay, and I thought, you know, the studying that I did looks like it's something that would work because it is a metal building. It doesn't burn. Hits one of the criteria. 2, it is $8,108. Falls in the budget. That's good. And I can put it up myself. No piece of it is too heavy for me to lift. You slip the tubes together, you fasten them together with screws, and you set the whole thing up on the concrete, and you anchor it down, and then you put up the sheet metal, and the building is done. So I'm looking at having a scaffolding in there on the concrete floor to put up the trusses and the studs, and then use that same scaffolding to go up and put the roof on as I go across. So I can work alone on that. Lydia's around. She's able to help, so I would have her probably passing me up steel as we were going along, handing me screwdrivers and screws and just doing what Lydia does. When we were first married, she said she was her dad's grunt. Her dad was a electrical lineman. He's supervisor of electrical linemen for Detroit Edison. So at home, when he was working on the house, she was his grunt. It's kind of fortunate that when you marry a woman who understands which way to hold a wrench, and when you say Phillips screwdriver, she knows which one to get. So anyways, now I have the basic plans done. I understand which way I'm going. We've done the numbers. Unless somebody comes up with a reason why I can't go forward, I'm ready to move. I've got Kellogg Community Credit Union that I have been doing business with now for, well, 11 years. I've had an account with them ever since we moved here. Well, actually, just after we moved here when I started YouTube, because I wanted to have a separate account, different bank, whole thing totally isolated from the family money. And so that has been the place that AdSense sent the checks. Chicken's almost done. Pork chop still got a little bit to go. I'm feeling good tonight, guys. Looks like the end of a long road is getting closer. Seemed like every time I got close to the actually getting on the road, somebody put up a roadblock and stopped me dead. And then I'd have to go through and come up with all the solutions and try and make everything work until something didn't work. The trees are the thing that didn't work on our plans that were in the bank until today. Because we were thinking it was going to be $1,200. $5,500 is a long ways from it. So we're going to be able to save a little bit on the concrete because we've only got a 24 by 24 foot building. We're going to save some on the building because we've only got a 24 by 24 instead of a 24 by 30. And we don't have to pay to take a tree down. No, I still want to take that tree down. It's still too big for me to tackle on my own, but I certainly can trim it. I can rent a bucket lift and go out there and cut away branches little bit by little bit and knock a whole bunch of stuff down on the ground and then spend my time cutting it up. Because I have to recognize that I can't just work 24 hours a day straight like I used to. Now it's about a 4-hour work day and then go sit down for a while. I use it to edit videos. I do some project in the morning, and then I edit the video and load the video for the next day. So that's the long, happy story now. Hopefully, no more sad parts to it. I think we're going to go ahead with the Annex. It's going to be really nice. If you have any suggestions for new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching.